acknowledge that we live, work, and gather on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin people, specifically the Temiskaming First Nation. We recognize the presence of the Temiskaming First Nation in our community since time immemorial and honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift their voice and values. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6. Roll call, please.
Good evening, Your Worship. All members are present with the exception of Councillor Ian Graydon.
Thank you. Brings us to item 4, review of revisions or deletions to the agenda.
Sorry, Councillor Graydon has joined virtually.
Okay, thank you. And seeing none, it takes us to item 5, approval of the agenda. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that City Council approves the agenda as printed. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Pelche-Leving. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? All in favor? The motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Melanie Descharmes declared a conflict of pecuniary interest related to Section 9, Presentations and Delegations, Item 9B regarding the Pavilion Women's Centre new second stage transitional housing project, as the Pavilion Women's Centre is her place of employment and her job responsibilities involve the project moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. Is there any others? Seeing none, it takes us to item 7. Public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, Municipal Act, and other statutes. We have 7A, a presentation. Number 2, the 2025 Municipal Operating and Capital Budget. Steph?
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, Council, and everyone joining in tonight. So after a few busy months of reviewing the city's financials, I'm pleased to share the second presentation of the 2025 draft budget for the City of Temiskaming Shores. Our agenda this evening will include year-over-year comparisons of the budget, the review of the operational budget summaries, the capital budget summary and charts, and some property tax scenarios. The management team has been reviewing and preparing the city's 2025 operating and capital budgets since August, and the draft budget was presented and reviewed at the Committee of the Whole on December 3rd. Resolutions of council at the meeting provided direction to incorporate a 1.5% increase to the tax levy, a 2% increase to water sewer rates, and a $10 increase to the solid waste fee. Those have been since incorporated in the summary that will be presented shortly, and the other scenarios were left in the presentation for comparison purposes. The main goal when preparing the 2025 budget was to remain fiscally responsible while minimizing disruptions to service levels and ensuring critical infrastructure needs are addressed. The team was mindful about setting realistic and achievable goals within their departments. They also took into consideration several existing plans, such as the Asset Management Plan, the Recreation Master Plan, the Active Transportation Plan, and other internal capital replacement plans. The current levels of debt and reserves were also considered during the process. So some of our internal goals and objectives were not to incur new debt for 2025 capital projects, build reserves for future capital projects, plan for potential recommendations from the strategic plan and organizational review, as well as present tax scenarios based on an increase to the tax levy between 1% and 3%. So the budget includes associated and contractual and legislated obligations, as well as inflationary increases as applicable. Management also considered historical trends, as well as expected future usage and requirements. So the estimates are based on information available at the time the budget is compiled. For 2025, we're proposing a total combined budget just under 24 million. So the charts that you see now illustrate the historical trends on total municipal budgets on a cash basis for the city, including the breakdown between the operations and the capital. Here we have a summary of the general operations budget. Just a few quick notes before we go through some of the details. So the actuals that you see on the left-hand side, those are based on a cash basis. Next, we have the 2024 final budget and this year's first draft. And then in the next section, we have changes to the budget based on different tax scenarios. So on the far left, in the budget change column, a positive number or a red number means an increase, and a negative number, or in brackets, means a decrease or additional revenue. And the same applies for the percentage change column. So we have prepared a few tax levy scenarios, and this changes the bottom number, general taxation, as well as the reserve allocation number. All other numbers in the tax scenarios are the same. So there were notable changes within several departments, which have been reviewed and presented at Committee of the Whole. In an effort to streamline this presentation, I will go over significant changes only. However, all notable changes can be found in the budget report, which is available in tonight's meeting package. Oops. So the employer benefits have increased in accordance to the 2025 guidelines. Those would include CPP, EI, EHT, WSIB, and OMERS. And the salary increases have been assumed in all staffing lines. Operating projects are included in the applicable departmental budgets for a total of $535,000. And the list of those projects with their brief descriptions are also available in the budget report. So for Note A in corporate services, most of the increase is driven by the projected increase to municipal insurance premiums and an estimate for the implementation of recommendations coming from the strategic planning and the organizational review. And the balance of the increase is mainly due to backfilling of the bylaw officer vacancy and the removal of revenues for contract services for the chief building official. We have also removed the entire provincial offenses municipal surplus distribution. For Note C, Public Works and Fleet, so the most notable changes in this line are the increase to the capital lease program with Enterprise, an increase to parts and maintenance, winter control, fuel, traffic safety, and lights, as well as the increase to wages and benefits per the collective agreement. For Note D, Solid Waste Management, so the savings within this department are a result of the transition to full producer responsibility as required under the newly implemented Blue Box regulation. So this change resulted in not having to budget for curbside recycling, collection, and processing of recyclables, as producers are now 100% responsible for this cost. Under Note E, we have the transit. So an increase to the transit budget of close to $100,000 has been included. This change is mainly due to the provincial gas tax allocation funding being entirely used to offset operations in 2024, whereas $115,000 of the 2025 allocation will be used for the purchase, towards the purchase of 2 new transit buses. On a positive note, Temiskaming Transit's debenture loan will be maturing in early 2025, and no new borrowing has been budgeted in 2025. For Note F, the policing. So on November 29th, the province announced financial relief for small and rural municipalities to help offset the increased cost of municipal police services provided by the OPP. The proposed changes to the billing are estimated to provide $418,000 in financial relief to the city compared to the original increase of $284,000. So the net change to policing for 2025 is a decrease of 4.8% compared to last year's budget. Note H for capital planning and financing. So in an effort to build a healthier working capital reserve, we are proposing a transfer to reserve equivalent to a minimum of 1% of our general taxation revenue. This would be used to offset future capital purchases or projects as approved. And note J, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, that was increased by $411,000, which is in accordance with our allocation notice for 2025. So overall, if we exclude the new reserve allocation line item, the increase to the general operations is 1.3%. Now, if we move on to environmental services, so the increase to Enviro operations is mainly driven by the inclusion of a water sewer maintenance position, which was approved and fully supported in 2024, as well as an increase of 2% to the Aqua contracted services. A 2% increase to water sewer rates has also been incorporated in this budget. This is based on November year-to-date actuals, including current year growth, and actually represents a 3.9% increase in revenues over the last year's budget. So the proposed rate changes covers the increase to Enviro operations. It also covers the Enviro capital, as well as allows for a transfer to reserve equivalent to 1.8% of the user fees. So moving on to the capital budget. So this represents the investment that the city will make to purchase, create, repair, and rehabilitate assets used to provide services to our community. Close to 1/5 or 18% of the total municipal budget is dedicated towards capital investments for 2025. And the main funding sources of these assets can include government grants, private partners and donors, reserves, transfers from the tax levy, and long-term debt. Here we see the combined summary of all the 2025 capital projects. So the proposed capital totals $4.4 million, and close to $1.2 million are carryover projects. And we would like to note that no new investments will be funded by debt in 2025 for the second consecutive year. So a full list of all the capital projects, along with their brief descriptions and funding sources, is available in the budget report. But a few highlights for the capital projects include the annual roads program, which the roads have yet to be determined, Colette Street storm and road upgrades, Phase 1 of the Golf Course Road Bridge East, the purchase of a new loader with the wing and plow attachments, purchase of 2 new transit buses, which are 2024 carryovers, and recreational park upgrades, which is also a 2024 carryover project. So this pie chart represents the proportion of funding sources for capital projects. So 46% will be funded through internal sources, such as the city transfer from tax levy and designated reserves, and 54% will be coming from external sources, which is funding and partners. So a few tax scenarios were prepared for the median residential property and the average commercial property in 2025. These were prepared using the ministry's tax modeling tool for illustration purposes, and they are subject to change based on final budget approval. All the tax scenarios have been left in the presentation for comparison purposes, with the addition of a scenario for the 1.5% increase to the tax levy. So So the median residential property is valued at $193,000 in 2025, with a 1.5% increase to the tax levy, a 2% increase to water sewer rates, and a $10 increase to solid waste fees. The median property would see an increase of approximately $76 annually, or just a little over $6 a month. On this slide here, we calculated using the same assessed value and tax rates, but this time we're showing the total taxes levied on the property versus just the change. And then we prepared scenarios for the average commercial property, which is valued at $339,000 in 2025. So we've used the same parameters as we did for the residential. And the average commercial property would see an increase of approximately $87 annually, or just a little over $7 a month. And again, as we did for the residential, we're showing the total annual property taxes instead of just the change for the year. So the Government of Ontario establishes the province's assessment and taxation regulations, and for 2025, the property assessments continue to be based on the 2016 values, which are now from 9 years ago. The Minister of Finance has not made any announcement at this time regarding the next update to property assessment values, and projected growth for the city in 2025 has not been incorporated into the budget, as it is unknown. So in summary, the recommendation of Council at the December 3rd meeting has been incorporated and presented in the draft budget, which covers the 1.3% increase to operations, excluding the budgeted reserve allocation, and would also cover the proposed capital. Any increase to the tax levy would allow for greater reserve allocation, which would support our goal for building a healthy capital reserve and/or increasing the contingency for implementation of any proposed initiatives or changes in relation to the city's ongoing planning and review projects. So we are seeking support from Council for adoption of the budget in principle as presented this evening. And I'd like to thank again the management and senior management teams for all of their time and collaboration in preparation of the budget. And I thank you all for your time today.
Thanks for your presentation, Steph. Does anybody have any questions for Steph? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, well, I wanted to thank again all of you, all the management team for putting this together, and I appreciate some of the background information that had been provided since, and so it's very, very useful. Certainly, as still a relatively new councillor, this whole process is really interesting. It's municipal finance is very different from sort of a business finance model, and continue to learn on this, and so I do appreciate the fact that things are being considered very seriously, and that we have a good budget, and it's a budget that is certainly very reasonable. And I guess the only point that I think from my perspective is, as we look into the future, is how we do build reserves for those projects that we need to think about. And I don't think we just need to think about the ones that are a few years down the road, but we need to think of the ones that are 40 years down the road when we're all kind of gone. But we need to think about those long-term future projects to continue to make our community a great place to live. So just thanks again for all the work that you and all of your team have done on this budget. It's learned a lot more this time. Learned a bit the first time, and so it's kind of a process. So looking forward to next year's process as well. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Any other comments? I just wanted to echo Councillor Wilson's comments. Thank you to the management team. It is a lot of work. It's always nice to have the budget approved before the end of the year as well, so that we can get moving forward. And maybe just to Councillor Wilson's comments with regards to looking at the reserves and how do we support the capital spending. And, you know, we did get a brief look at what the capital looks like for 2026. But if you look at the asset management plan that, you know, was presented, it really does speak to the overwhelming challenge that all municipalities are going to have in replacing some of those assets. And I think that, you know, yeah, we need to do some planning from a reserve perspective and prioritizing, but it also speaks to the fact, the importance of us lobbying the provincial and the federal government. Because when we look at the asset management piece and we look at how old some of those assets are, it isn't something that can be done on the backs of just our small rate base. So I would just want to say thanks again, and it definitely, it's nice to be prepared to move forward for 2025, so thank you. I do have a resolution in front of me, be it resolved that council, Councillor
I know you like to wrap it up there.
That's okay.
The thought came to me as you were discussing, and Councillor Wilson was discussing the unfunded items that are really in dire need in terms of capital in the city that are sitting in our asset management plan, that staff have done an excellent job prioritizing the most serious ones that they're coming to the table. But I wonder if moving forward, if there's a way to communicate what that looks like, what we're sort of looking at, kind of, you know, what's really, we hear it from the ratepayers because they see it when we pave a road because we can't afford to fix the sewer and water underneath it. So they understand it in the practical sense, but maybe if we can move ahead and communicate what is really, what got axed from this list, I guess you could say, because that way we are starting to have things that we can take when we have the opportunity to speak with people even casually who have influence provincially and federally of like what those numbers of the things we're not doing really are too. I do commend staff for all the things they are doing and really looking carefully and presenting a great budget, so thank you for all your hard work.
Sure, thanks. And we can pull that information together and make sure we have it for everyone. Okay. Any last comments? Okay, I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby acknowledges the presentation of the finalized 2025 operating and capital budget for adoption in principle at the December 17th, 2024 regular council meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Seconded by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? And that motion is carried. Brings us to item 8, review and adoption of the council minutes. And I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that City Council approves the following minutes as printed. A, the regular council meeting held on November the 19th, 2024, and B, the Committee of the Whole meeting held on December the 3rd, 2024. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Whalen, seconded by Councillor Pelche-Leving. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item 9, presentations. And so 9A, we do have a presentation from Ian Duff, the President, and Nancy Johnston, the Strategic Initiative Director for McSweeney and Associates, and it's for the City of Temiskaming Shores Community-Based Strategic Plan. So Ian and Nancy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to say thank you for having us back. Nancy and I have been up to see you folks several times throughout the process, and it's always nice to be back, although this time it is virtual. But tonight we are going to go through, at a fairly high level, your plan. I will talk a bit about the process, and we'll talk about some of the things that are in the plan, but I just want to commend the city, and we'll talk about it a bit more when we get to some of the consultation pieces, but a lot of people sitting in this room tonight have been a part of the process since day one. And that's a big deal. It means a lot as we move through the process together, A lot of people pushed us and challenged us and asked us questions about what things meant or what some of the, what some of the conversations were around, and that's a good thing. It shows that you were invested, and it's nice to see that you're there from the start to finish, so we appreciate that. So we are here tonight to talk about your community-based strategic plan. Next slide, please. We just wanted to throw this slide in. This sets the tone. Moving forward, it is important that the city is welcoming and diverse, and that they celebrate this as they go forward. So this opening slide sort of sets the tone for the entire plan. Next slide, please. And actually, we can jump right into the next one, please. So, what is the purpose of the plan? Really, it is to help guide staff through some of their decision-making processes and identifying what's important in developing the community for the next 5 to 10 years. It's also about building on the foundation that's already been set. So the city is already doing a lot of great things. It's really about moving forward and identifying, those core and those important pieces as the city continues to evolve and the city continues to build itself. Next slide, please. So some of the things that the corporation or the city needs to think about and sort of, parts of a vision would include, you want to make sure that you continue to offer those necessities and those amenities that residents have come to expect, but also you are, a very strong focal point for the region. That's an important thing. It's also to celebrate your cultural diversity. There's some legacy cultures and heritage and some traditions that are already entrenched in the community, but you're growing and seeing new types of cultures. Celebrate that. Make sure that the city is still cohesive and that you are all working together. You've got a beautiful waterfront and you're located in some pretty pristine environment. It's how do you make sure that you enjoy that waterfront and the environment while protecting it, but also making sure that you do have a chance to celebrate it and enjoy it. And the last one is really about being able to take risks. It's about moving forward for the future and not just keeping the lights on, but also find ways to grow and enhance the community through time and through the next 5 to 10 years. Next slide, please. So how did we get here? Next slide, please. We followed a very deliberate process, step by step. So there was 4 specific steps that we followed. And right from the project initiation meeting, right before we even looked at step number 1, when we engaged with staff, it was nice to see the number of staff that were involved and the number of elected officials that were involved right from day 1. So the next slide, please. So the first step we call discover, but we went through deliberately 12 of your specific key documents. We also put together a very heavy data document called a community analysis. So we looked at what the community looked like on paper from a stats and statistical perspective. Next step, please. Then we engage with the community. So Nancy and I had lots of conversations with people one-on-one. We went up to visit folks a few times. We had a focus group. There was an online survey that was out there. And we also got together and talked specifically to staff and council to find out what are those important things that you want to see achieved or something that you think that's very important to you as the community evolves. All in all, there was almost 300 people participated in the consultation process. For a community of your size, that's a big deal. That's a big number. But there's also some things that jumped out at us that were very pressing at the time. And I think we've mentioned this several times throughout the process. We engage with a lot of communities across Canada, and it was nice to see specifically in Temiskaming Shores the positivity that we were met with. You hear some negative stuff, but with every negative thing, people always flipped around and said, but we can also do this, or we can look at different ways to do things. But everyone loved where they lived. It was very refreshing for us to have the conversations, to engage with people, just because of the positive attitude that was there. And that's a big deal. That's a very big factor for the community. You don't want to lose that as you go forward. The other thing is, most people that we spoke to, they had something to say. They didn't just reach out to us or connect with us just because they, had nothing better to do. People actually had good comments, and the input was very well received, very thoughtful, and we really appreciate that. It made it easier on us as we went through the process to really delve into what was important to the community, just because of the thoughtfulness that people put into their responses. The next slide, please. So after we put together the consultation piece, we looked at the stats and data, we went back up and we had a really good public focused session where we call it a working session, but it was really, working through with members of the community some themes and some important actions. And we took away from that some very important to-dos on our end, and some actions that were, that were going to make up your strategic plan. Next slide, please. And at the end of the day, we're here to talk about the final report, the final product, which is your strategic plan. Next slide, please. So what is the important parts? What is the parts of the strategy that you really want to hone in on? Next slide, please. So the strategic plan is made up of 5 very specific goals and 39 actions. We tried very hard to get it down a little bit fewer than 39, but we also gave you an opportunity at the end to sort of look at what are the top 5. And the way that we got to the 5 goals and the different actions, we met with staff and some elected officials and went through the draft line by line, literally, to sort of pull out what doesn't make sense and to refine and revisit some of those actions that were important. So we did vet this, which was a good thing because we always don't get everything right. So it was nice to have that conversation with some of the elected officials and staff and to really put their stamp on what's important. Next slide, please. So the first goal is really, it came out loud and clear when we were doing the consultations, and even when you get up there and you become entrenched in the community. You've got a beautiful surrounding. You've got a beautiful natural environment. It's really embracing that and really looking at ways to become stewards of your environment. You want to look at ways to protect it, but also enjoy it and enhance it. Next slide, please. The next goal, this goal really talks about making sure that the community is unified, bringing it together so it is one collective community that not only embraces your existing cultural diversity, but also supports any new people, newcomers, or new types of culture or diversity that enters into the community. It's very important that you're very open and that you embrace that as a collective, as a larger community. Next slide, please. It's kind of interesting, Nancy and I just got to sit through some of your budget conversation. This slide talks all about, making sure that you are investing in the right infrastructure. But not just that, it's also about making sure that you're letting people know that you're communicating why you're doing this. You've got a wonderful asset management plan. It's difficult sometimes to fund it, but you do have a plan to ensure that you have the most or the best infrastructure that you can provide. It's paramount, though, that you reflect this out and that you communicate this to the residents and give them the why you're doing this and why it's important. The next goal, please. So this really talks about making sure that the people that live in the city are currently supported with different amenities, different assets, different things that make Temiskaming Shores that unique place and that place where they want to live. But it's also about finding ways to help grow the population and to make sure that you're not stagnating, but the community is still on that upward trajectory in terms of growth and development. And the last goal, please. And the last goal, it says what it is. It's about supporting your local economy. You're sort of on the cusp or in the hub of 3 very strategic sectors, and although you may not have that specific sector within city boundaries, forestry, agriculture, and mining, you're a hub that really supports those three major sectors. So continue to work on that, continue to support them and grow the economy through those sectors and through the support of your local businesses. So last slide, please. So paring it down, instead of going through all the different 39 actions, we sat down and sort of pulled out what are the 5 from the people that we talked to, from the consultations, just from the input, from talking with staff and elected officials. What are 5 things that are really important, 5 actions? You really need to look at your land use planning documents. It's an opportunity to update them, and through that, really start identifying where the city wants to grow, what's important, where are the hubs, where are the places where you want to start to invest. And through that process, you get to communicate and engage with the public and with residents again, so that they see where the city's moving and why. You also want to make sure that you're getting the message out about the city of Temiskaming Shores being that one unified city, and really embracing that and valuing that and cherishing that identity as you move forward. You are a very diverse community, and you've got some legacy cultures that you're embracing already. It's really now looking at your corporate policies and looking at ways to reflect that, and building out some of those policies to be more inclusive and be more open and supportive to the different cultures that are within the city already. You've got your asset management plan. It's how do you communicate that out? It's how do you make sure that people know what you're doing and why you're doing it? Typically, elected officials and staff, you're very close to the issues, so you know why you can or cannot fund something. But often, sometimes your residents, what they're seeing is either an inaction or an action that they don't know why you're doing it. So make sure that you're communicating the process of why you're doing things through your asset management plan, because it's a great tool that you have. And there's difficulties in making sure you've got the right infrastructure in place, but you have a plan. Stick to it and make sure that people know why you're doing these things. And finally, the last one is really looking at tightening down or finding policies to start protecting, some of your natural beauty. You've got a gem in the lake, excuse me, but there are things happening around it that could threaten its future. So look at ways to make sure that you're putting policies in place that really promote environmental sustainability, and that you're really looking at ways to protect that main asset that you have. So those are your top 5 priority actions as we see them. Doesn't mean that you can't shift them around, shuffle the deck, and move and look at other ones as you see fit. You also have to think about, as you go forward with the plan, you may get funding for certain initiatives, or you might see something where you can implement it sooner or quicker. There's no reason why you shouldn't jump in and do that. But these were the top 5 that jumped out at us through the process that we went through. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, this is your plan. This is your strategic plan. You've all had fingerprints on it. You've all worked on it. It is truly community-based, based on the input and the feedback that we got from the community. And at the end of the day, we've also tried to make it as realistic and doable as possible. We are very cognizant of how overburdened municipalities are these days, just with your day-to-day stuff. So we wanted to make sure that what was in the plan was something that the city could achieve over time. And again, it doesn't mean you're out and do all these actions at once. It will take time to do them. And we suggest you revisit them from time to time. But this is your plan, and you can do it as you see fit. So there you go. Next slide, please. I do want to say thank you. And I'm being sincere when I say this. Nancy and I had a really good time working on the project. You were very welcoming to us through the whole process. In fact, the entire community was very positive. The engagements that we had, there was some pretty good conversation that got fairly heated is not the right word, but that got people were interested, but always positive, and always very supportive as we went through this. So thank you very much for that. Any questions?
Thanks for your presentation, Ian and Nancy. Does anybody have any questions for Ian or Nancy? We don't have any questions, Ian, but just on behalf of Mayor and Council, I'd like to say thank you to you and Nancy for your leadership and expertise in assisting us through this process. I think that it is nice to have a document that we can look towards and start to take action on as we move into 2025. I'd also like to, give a huge thank you to the community. And, when we talk about the strategic plan, it's not Mayor and Council's strategic plan. It really is, our community plan. And having over 300 people or around 300 people involved and engaged in creating, the vision for the next 5 to 10 years, I think it speaks volumes about how valuable our community really is and how much they care. So thanks for your assistance, and we really, really appreciate the work that both of you have done to really assist us in this process. So thank you. And with that, if there isn't any other questions or comments, I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that City Council hereby acknowledges the presentation of the City of Temiskaming Shores Community-Based Strategic Plan, and that Council directs staff to prepare an administrative report regarding the Community-Based Strategic Plan for the January 21st, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Dawson, second by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? All in favor? And that motion is carried. Takes us to item B, and we have Chantal Charbonneau, the President, and Melanie Ducharme, the Executive Director of the Pavilion's Women's Shelter, and they're going to give us a presentation on the new second stage transitional housing project. Chantal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and everybody in attendance today. Thank you for granting me the opportunity to present today. So as Mayor Laferriere said, I'm Chantal Charbonneau, and I'm the President of the Pavilion Women Center. Melanie Ducharme is also here with me, and she might be able to answer some of the questions at the end. So we are here to discuss an exciting new initiative, the second stage transitional housing project. This project aims to provide safe and supportive housing for women and children transitioning from emergency shelters, as we have now, to independent living. We look forward to your feedback at the end and any questions you may have. I won't go into many details when it comes to this, since most of you are aware of what the Pavilion is, but we were established in 1984, and it is a vital resource in Hellbury and the Temiskaming area. This 10-bed emergency shelter provides a safe haven for women and children escaping violence across the vast district of Temiskaming. Each year, the Pavilion Women's Center shelters between 60 to 70 women and children and offers many different services to over 200 individuals in our community. The proposal we have today is second stage transitional housing. So sometimes I'll refer to it as SSTH because it's a mouthful. It's a vital form of supportive housing for survivors of domestic violence. Many survivors require way more time and support to heal from their trauma and rebuild their lives. And usually the typical 6-week stay in a shelter does not meet that need. It is often insufficient. Second stage housing was created to meet the needs for affordable housing, safety and security, and anti-violence programming. These apartment-style residences offer a supportive environment for a period of average 6 months to 2 years, providing survivors with the necessary time to recover and start their lives anew. So some of the programs that we do offer and services are crisis and counseling support, transitional housing support, child witness programs, outreach programs, sexual assault programs, and public education programs. So what I'll show you now is 2 case studies. So the first one is from Red Lake, Ontario. And we chose this one because it goes to show that it doesn't need to be a large city. It can also be done in smaller communities. So the 2 communities we've chosen are very comparable in size and in rural aspects. So in Red Lake, they built 10 units of second stage transitional housing, and that was a partnership through Kenora District Services Board, who owns the building, and New Starts for Women, who operate it. The project was completed in 2021. It was a new build covering 12,000 to 13,000 square feet and a cost of $5.4 million. So we understand that in Northern Ontario, we are limited and we do have our challenges due to our unique geographical and logistical challenges. But it's a reality we have to face and we have to navigate to ensure that our community has the necessary resources and support. The second one, and here you see pictures of the Red Lake complex. So very different, 2 different cases. The case study in Sussex, New Brunswick is 5 units of second stage transitional housing. Sussexville Transition House owns and operates the building, and it was completed in 2024. So as you can see, it's very different. But still has its pros and cons. And that was a $3 million project for 5 units. The housing crisis and gender-based violence epidemic. So this is the reason why we're here. So in the district of Temiskaming, 25.5% of households are in core housing need. And the wait list for affordable housing can be as long as 10 years. Intimate partner violence accounts for 30% of police-reported crime in Canada, and it's a leading cause of women's homelessness. Rural women in Canada experience police-reported intimate partner violence at nearly twice the rate of urban women. And violent crime rates for rural women are 56% higher than the national average. In 2021, the DSAB point-in-time count revealed that abusive conflicts with family members or spouses were major causes of homelessness and housing loss. Unfortunately, there are very few family units available through the DSAB. The community need. So over the past 2 years, data shows that women entering the shelter program at the Pavilion have struggled to find safe, adequate, and affordable housing in our community. Only 21% of women were able to secure adequate housing after leaving the emergency shelter program. In 23-24 alone, Pavilion had to turn away 10 women and their children seeking safe shelter from violence due to capacity restrictions. Alarmingly, as of October 2024, just 7 months into the 24-25 fiscal year, the Pavilion has already had to turn away 25 women and their children for the same reason. Many of these women end up couch surfing, in inadequate housing or in unsafe living situations. Our solution is the Pavilion Women's Center's new second stage transitional housing project. Our goal at Pavilion, I just want to make sure I'm on the right one here, is to create a new facility for women and children fleeing violence. This facility will include 8 to 10 second stage transitional housing units and up to 10 emergency shelter beds. The new project will offer high security, comprehensive support services, and plenty of outdoor green space for survivors of violence in the district of Temiskaming. We aim to create a welcoming home where women can feel safe, receive the support they need, and have the time to heal from trauma. So we want to ensure safety and security by providing wraparound supports and access to services, some outdoor green space, offering pet-friendly housing. One of the reasons for this is that often women fleeing abusive situation face the difficult choice of leaving their pets behind, and that is another thing that often keeps them there. And we don't want them to have to make that difficult decision. Also, cultural inclusivity. Exploring land opportunities. Oops. So Pavilion is currently exploring land opportunities for our new project. We've gathered input from the women we serve, and here's what they identified as their key wants and/or needs. Public transportation access, access to services, walkable neighborhood, proximity to Pavilion Women's Center services, appropriately zoned, affordably priced, with outdoor amenity space. So we propose two scenarios. The first one is a mixed shelter with 10 emergency shelter beds and 10 second stage transitional housing units. This would replace our existing shelter, which, as you all know, is very old and no longer adequate. As Melanie Wood once said, the space is so small that the women could literally hold hands if they wanted to. In this mixed shelter, we would have a mix of single and double occupancy rooms for the emergency shelter, and all independent second stage units would range from 1 to 4 bedroom apartments. The facility would also include amenity space for programming and office space for staff, covering a total of 18,000 square feet. The second scenario we're proposing involves adding 8 second stage transitional housing units to our existing shelter. These units would be independent, ranging from 1 to 4 bedroom apartments again, and the facility would also include some amenity space for programming and office space for staff, covering a total of 10,752 square feet. The impact that this would have. It will be significant. It will enhance the range of supports available for survivors of violence and their children, helping them transition safely to fully independent living. Our second stage transitional housing project will support up to an additional 36 women and children fleeing violence each year as residents, with many more women in the community benefiting from our programming. This project will also create sustainable, affordable housing units in Northern Ontario, helping to ease the housing crisis. The new housing will be owned and operated by the Pavilion Centre, a trusted community organization with more than 40 years of experience. Now their request. We are asking for the City of Temiskaming Shores Council Further support for the new Pavilion Women's Center second stage transitional housing. Specifically, we need supportive community messaging to endorse the project. Letters of support for funding opportunities, and exploration of the option to donate land for the project. Your endorsement and support are crucial in helping us secure the necessary resources to make this project a reality. Together, we can provide a safe and supportive environment for women and children in our community, helping them transition to independent living and a brighter future. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any question you may have, and I look forward to working together to achieve this important goal. Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation, Chantal. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Dawson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Question I have is your duration that you expect these families to stay at each phase of your housing. What is that, and then how long before this expansion will be full and you'll be looking at expanding again?
So at the moment, we're currently in the preliminary phase and feasibility study. Once we have the results, we will develop a detailed timeline. But as for the women, the shelter would, if we go through the second stage housing part and not just the shelter part, women are usually in there for 6 months to 2 years. And that gives them time to get back on their feet in a safe environment. They learn how to be on their own and to manage their finances and get back to a life without the violence.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mayor. Great presentation. Thank you. This is a very interesting project, and we know how important housing is for so many of our social challenges that we have right across society now, and it's a very, very important project. I was just wondering about the Red Lake project, and if there was some feedback on where is it at now, and how is it functioning, and is it a good model? As you said, it's kind of it's a small community, and so have you learned some things from that?
Maybe I will defer to Melanie for this one.
Okay,
she lives
great.
it day in, day out.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Sorry, Mel, put you on the spot.
No.
Thanks.
I was ready to defer.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. So Red Lake has been open since 2021, and it's operated by New Starts for Women, which is sort of the Pavilion's counterpart in Red Lake. And there's been a learning curve. I know the executive director, Jennifer, quite well, in terms of how they support the women who are living there. But they are finding that there is some success, and it is about addressing timelines. So I think they're seeing that 1 year is not long enough. 2 years is probably closer to the right number. So there are some lessons learned there. And there's been a few different developments open in the west, in the northwest, Kenora, Atikokan, things like that. So very northern. Lots of geographic challenges and distance between communities. But what they are seeing is, whether it's family court or getting health care going again, getting a chance to get back on your feet financially if you were in a single income, let's say, relationship, those things don't happen in 6 weeks, which is what we are hoping people will stay in shelter for. We don't want women staying in shelter where they may be sharing a room with somebody they've never met before, where they can literally hold hands if they're laying in bed. So we really do want women to start moving towards independence. We also know they're not safe right away. 6 weeks isn't long enough. It can take a long time for some of the safety risks to reduce as well, so we want a secure location where they can make those steps and feel at home and reasonably safe for them and their children.
Thanks. Any Councillor Peltier-Lavigne.
Thank you very much for the presentation and also for your leadership in this. It's an important issue and the numbers are staggering. You're presenting two scenarios. If I understand the scenario where you replace the current shelter, does that increase your capacity? That's my first question. And secondly, is this a question of funding in terms of scenario? You must have a preferred one?
The first scenario would be ideal. The shelter we have now, like Melanie said, it's less than adequate. Like it is homey, we have high ceilings and everything, but it is very, very tight. And it is an old building. We're always afraid the boiler is gonna go. So it's seen good times, but it's time to move on. So I think the preferred for most of us would be the first scenario. But we are entertaining both for sure. And the second part of your question?
I was just asking in the first scenario where you mix the two shelters, if that's increasing your capacity for the shelter part. I see it's a 10-bed.
The shelter part would remain the same. So instead of seeing so many women staying too long in the shelter part of the crisis part, we would hope they would move into the second stage. So hopefully we wouldn't have women remain as long in crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I do want to say thank you for your presentation, and I know there are some requests, to council, and I know we'll be addressing them with you as you go further along with the project. I think that, we all recognize the need, and all of the municipalities across the province, I think even the province eventually agreed that there is an epidemic with regards to the violence against women, and if we look at the growing need in homelessness and anything we can do to support assisting in providing assistance, whether that's through letters of support, for funding, even when we look at finding a proper location, I think we would look forward to having those conversations and looking forward to seeing some progress with, we start with the presentation. I want to thank you for taking the leadership and to, we would like to play a role in assisting and in moving the yardsticks and ensuring that this comes to fruition. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to working with you.
Have a great evening. Okay, it takes us to item 10, correspondence and communication. So 10A from John Elvidge, the City Clerk for the City of Toronto, and the request for support respecting local democracy and cities, and that was received for information. Not very often we have this much communication, so I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores agrees to deal with communication item 10A in accordance with the agenda reference. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Peltier-Lavigne, seconded by Councillor Wayland. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item 11, Committees of Council, Community and Regional. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that the following minutes be accepted for information. A, the minutes from the Active Travel Committee meetings held on May the 13th, 2024 and October the 28th, 2024. B, the minutes from the All-Age Friendly Community Committee meetings held on May the 23rd, 2024 and on September the 26th, 2024. C, minutes from the Climate Change Committee meeting held on October the 10th, 2024. D, the minutes from the Temiskaming Shores Public Library Board meeting held on October the 30th, 2024. E, the minutes from the Temiskaming Shores OPP Detachment Board inaugural meeting held on October the 9th, 2024. And F, the minutes from the Temiskaming Transit Committee meeting held on September the 23rd, 2024. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Dawson, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? Councillor Whalen, no? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item 12, reports by members of council. Does anybody have any? Councillor Whalen, we'll try this again.
Just quickly, an update for council as liaison for the Rock on Canada Day Committee. I just wanted council to know that just recently the organization and a bunch of their children went from seniors home to hand delivering special invitations for next year's event. It was a real significant event for the seniors. So it's nice to see the seniors and the kids getting involved, and it's generating a lot of talk online and looking really good. The other topic I wanted to touch on just briefly, since it's going to become a significant media topic over the next couple of years, is the Nuclear Waste Management Organization has chosen Ignis as their site for the deep geological repository. My organization has been involved since day one, about 14 years on the municipal forum. I personally have been 4 years now on that forum, and we just held our last meeting, so my activity there has ended, but we've sent a letter asking Nuclear Waste Management to allow Phenom to continue to be part of the process, because transportation in North is a serious issue, and we want to make sure that all the interests of the North are respected as far as transportation. I know many municipalities passed a resolution saying we don't want it to pass through our municipality, but the reality is that they're provincial highways, so you know, it's a nice stance to take, but it has very little impact on the process itself. So that'll be a topic we'll be reading about a lot in the paper, so hopefully we can get some northern representation to stay involved in the process. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Whalen. Any other? Councillor Ducharme?
I had the opportunity to attend and participate in a number of community arts events, and I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate the Temiskaming Community Choir, led by Patty Campbell and Mary Light. They had a very successful concert. The Temiskaming District Secondary Schools Bring the House Down Players hosted a production that was actually written by a local teacher, Alex White, and also a student, Greer Sadler, and I'd like to congratulate them on an excellent production. And myself and Councillor Pelletier-Levine had the opportunity to play our little hearts out at the Temiskaming Community Concert Band, concert led by Gail Menard. The arts make our community so vibrant. I've been a long-time participant and proponent of the arts, and they make this place an exciting place to live. So all of these organizations are volunteer-driven and led, and I just want to say to everyone who was in those performances, we appreciate your talents and your hard work. You really add something to this community. So,
thanks, Councillor Ducharme. Any other? No? Thank you. Takes us to item 13, notice of motions. Is there any notice of motions tonight? Seeing none. Moving on to item 14, new business, 14A, resolution of support for the town of Blue Mountains. And I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas Council for the Town of Blue Mountains adopted a resolution regarding the Ontario Good Roads Association request to support the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program at their regular meeting on October the 21st, 2024. And whereas official statistics from the Government of Ontario confirm that rural roads are inherently more dangerous than other roads, and whereas despite only having 17% of the population, 55% of the road fatalities occur on rural roads. And whereas rural, northern, and remote municipalities are fiscally strained by maintaining extensive road networks on a smaller tax base, and whereas preventing crashes reduces the burden on Ontario's already rural-strained healthcare system, and whereas roadway collisions and associated lawsuits are significant factors in runaway municipal insurance premiums, preventing crashes can have a significant impact in improving municipal risk profiles. Be it resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores supports the Town of the Blue Mountains request that the Ontario government take action to implement the Rural Road Safety Program that Good Roads has committed to lead, allowing Ontario's rural municipalities to make the critical investments needed to reduce the high number of people being killed and seriously injured on Ontario's rural roads. And that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Pragmeet Sakaria, Minister of Transportation, and Honourable Kinga Surma, the Minister of Infrastructure, the Honourable Rob Flack, Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Rural Affairs, the Honourable Trevor Jones, the Associate Minister of the Emergency Preparedness and Response, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health, John Van Toft, the MPP for Temiskaming Cochrane, and the Ontario Good Roads Association, and the Town of the Blue Mountains. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Whalen, seconded by Councillor Pelche-Living. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Next is item B, Administrative Report, PW-032-2024, the Recycling Depot Operations Agreement. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administrative Report PW-032-2024, and that Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into an agreement with Circular Materials Ontario for compensation related to the operation of the Recycling Convenience Depot at the New Liskeard landfill for consideration at December 17th, 2024 regular council meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Dawson. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item C, the 2025 municipal operating budget. I do have a resolution in front of me. Whereas staff presented the 2025 municipal operating budget to Council at the December 3rd, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting and at the December 17th, 2024 regular Council meeting, be it resolved the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby adopts in principle its 2025 municipal operating budget, utilizing a 1.5% increase to the municipal tax levy for operations, a 2% increase to water and wastewater rates, and a $10 increase to the solid waste fee. And further, the Council hereby adopts in principle the 2025 general operating budget estimates as follows. And you can see them all listed below. Can I get a mover, please? Oh, sorry. And further, the Council adopts in principle the 2025 environmental operating budget estimates as follows. Get a mover, please. It's Councillor Ducharme. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? Councillor Whalen?
Yeah, I was going to make a comment when Stephanie made her presentation, but I wanted to wait till after we approved the strategic plan, because Councillor Ducharme brought on a very valid point, of looking ahead. But in this strategic plan, it says to continue to invest in the community in a cost-effective manner and to communicate the message, which is always a part that we've often been guilty of not doing. So, but I think one of the most important parts that was mentioned during the budget presentation is that no projects have been undertaken based on long-term debt. And I think that's rather significant. And I want to thank staff for the work that they put into this year's budget, because, you know, we could go 1% based on the numbers they had there, but I think 1.5 is more responsible because it does give us a flexibility while still not relying on long-term debt. And because now that we have adopted the strategic plan and we're looking at the official plan next, there's going to come a time where we're going to have to make some decisions that are going to have to be based on what's best for the municipality rather than what's best for our conscience, and they're not going to be easy decisions. So I think, you know, this is a great budget. I think it's been well thought out, but it also puts us in a better position for next year as we plan going forward. So I just wanted to raise that comment, but I didn't want to raise it till after we accepted the strategic plan, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Whalen. Anybody else? Okay, we do have a resolution in front of us. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Next is item D, the 2025 municipal capital budget. I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas staff presented the 2025 municipal capital budget to council at the December 3rd, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting and at the December 17th, 2024 regular council meeting. Be it resolved that council hereby adopts in principle the 2025 general capital budget estimates as follows. And further, the council hereby appoints in principle the 2025 environmental capital budget estimates as follows. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Whalen. Seconded by Councillor Pelche-Leving. Discussion? All in favor? And that motion is carried. Brings us to bylaws. We do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-139, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Temiskaming and Northern Ontario snow travelers for prescribed snowmobile trails land use permission. Bylaw number 2024-140, being a bylaw to enter into a one-year agreement with Pedersen Construction 2013 Inc. for the equipment rental excavator with operator for water and sewer breaks and repairs. Bylaw number 2024-141, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with GFL Environmental Inc. for the collection and processing of recyclables from non-eligible properties. Bylaw number 2024-142, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Ministry of Transportation under the EV Charge-On program for the installation of a level 3 charger with 2 ports. Bylaw number 2024-143, being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025. Bylaw number 2024-144, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into a lease agreement with Dr. Peter Hutton-Chapsky for the rental of space at the Haileybury Medical Center. Bylaw number 2024-145, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into a lease agreement with Dr. Chelsea Pretty for the rental of space at the Haileybury Medical Center. Bylaw number 2024-146, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Circular Materials Ontario for compensation related to the operation of the recycling convenience depot at the Niliskard landfill from January 1st, 2025 until December 31st, 2025. Be hereby introduced and given first, second, and third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Dawson, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item 16, the schedule of council meetings. A, the Committee of the Whole meeting scheduled for January the 21st, 2025, starting at 3 p.m. And B, the regular council meeting scheduled for January the 21st, 2025, starting immediately following the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Just for the clerk's benefit, Councillor Wilson and myself will be away at the Roma conference on those dates. I do have a meeting with the Minister of Energy at 3 p.m., but I don't know how long it will be, so just for subject of quorum, I'll definitely be able to zoom in, but I'm not exactly sure when I'll be able to start.
Thanks, Councillor Wynn.
And I should be able to zoom in as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Brings us to item 17, question and answer period. Do we have any questions? No? Seeing none? We don't have any closed session. Brings us to item 19, confirming bylaw. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-147, being a bylaw to confirm certain proceedings of council of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores for the Committee of the Whole meeting on December the 3rd, 2024, and for the regular meeting on December the 17th, 2024, be hereby introduced and given first, second, and third, and final reading, be signed by the Mayor and Clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Whalen. Seconded by Councillor Peltier-Lemay. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item 20, adjournment. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, council hereby adjourns its meeting at 7:20. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Dawson. Seconded by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.